Chapter 1501. As for Yu Si Huang and family none of them would be able to leave the Saint King's tomb. Feng Wan's eyes were extremely gloomy. She instructed the people of the Ouyang clan, "Just do as I say," she spoke in a low voice as she explained her plan. At this moment in the room, Luo Qingtong looked at the Hua clan head's violent attack and her eyes turned cold. Bang! She waved an attack in her hand. In an instant, the black sword light swept straight and shattered countless surging spiritual energy vortexes. Boom boom boom. The two attacks collided. The black sword light blasted out by Luo Qingtong was shattered by the Hua clan head with a single hand. In the sky, countless spiritual qi of heaven and earth surged, colliding with each other in this huge room. Luo Qingtong's feet scraped the ground and she was blasted back by the collision of the two attacks. Ah, Yijio. Don't think that you can compete with me just because your strength has increased to the peak of the martial spirit realm and you have the help of a treasure sword. The strength of the Saint Realm is beyond your imagination. The Saint Realm was beyond the Saint Realm and officially entered the Transcendent Realm. Compared to the Saint Realm, it was almost 2 realms higher. How could a mere peak of the martial spirit realm be compared to such a level of strength? The Hua clan head looked at Luo Qingtong with a sneer. It was already good that she could rely on that long sword to fight with him. However, with the strength in her body, how many times could she fight with him? Yijio, you're dead this time. Watch me torture you to death to vent the hatred in my heart. The Hua clan head thought so and attacked again. As for Luo Qingtong, after exchanging blows with the head of the Hua family, she quickly felt that the power of the soul of the Holy King in her body was fusing rapidly with her body. If an example had to be used, it was equivalent to the power that Luo Qingtong had obtained before, but she only obtained the formula to solve the problem. Now, under the attack of the Hua clan head, Luo Qingtong's formula to solve the problem began to be used officially. Luo Qingtong's strength had increased too quickly. From the beginning of the martial ancestor realm, she rose to the peak of the martial spirit realm in an instant. Even if there was no lack of power and strength, it did not mean that she could perfectly use it in battle and display her true strength. And now, the Hua clan head was acting as a sparring partner, helping Luo Qingtong to temper her strength to reach the peak of the martial spirit realm and strengthen her foundation. Once the tempering was completed, the peak of the martial spirit realm's strength, the peak of the martial spirit realm in her body. Luo Qingtong's for a moment, force 2 for Luo force to 2's to S's, to God. Luo Qingtong Luo to himself's face for S in an instant. Snowball, who had been growling at the side and was about to pounce on Patriarch Hua, leaped into the air and appeared in front of her. Snowball, who had entered the growth stage, no longer cried out like a cute cub. Instead, it had a bit of domineering and wild nature. This shout was extremely loud and clear. Luo Qingtong jumped when it jumped over and sat on its body. Let's go. After Snowball's transformation, it had the strength of the Saint Realm. Chapter 1502. Old dog, let's play slowly. Luo Qingtong looked at the Hua family head who was full of killing intent. She licked her lips with her fragrant tongue, overflowing with an evil aura, charming and alluring. At this moment, the disguise of her temperament was removed, revealing her elegance. Umph. The Hua family head looked at her and sneered. A mere peak martial spirit realm cultivator dared to boast shamelessly. Even experts who had surpassed the Saint Realm had to be respectful in front of him, not daring to be arrogant. She was not even in the Saint Realm, yet she dared to be arrogant in front of him? With this Saint Realm demonic beast? What a joke. Since she wanted to play, he would naturally accompany her to play. He just didn't know if she could bear it. The Hua family head thought so and suddenly flicked his sleeves. With a swoosh, his whole body instantly flew up like a vulture spreading its wings and rushed towards Luo Qingtong. At the same time, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light, and she also clamped Snowball's waist and abdomen. The latter roared and immediately carried her to meet the Hua family head. Boom boom boom. 2 people and 1 beast's figures crisscrossed in midair. Luo Qingtong activated her pupil technique, and the Hua family head's attack trajectory and body movements were all in her eyes. Although it was not enough for her to seize the opponent's flaws and attack to break through, Snowball under her body moved at will and could cooperate with her to avoid the Hua family head's attack and hit the strongest part of the body. The remaining weak points were enough for Luo Qingtong to deal with her current strength. The 2 people and 1 beast's figures flashed violently in this room. In the exit hall, after Feng Wan and the others arranged for a while, people from other families and forces began to arrive one after another. At the entrance of the Saint King's tomb, there were 12 passages, and each passage led to the exit hall. Among them there was only one passageway, which was the one that Luo Qingtong told Yusi Huang and the others. It was the most important treasure location. Most of the treasures and resources in the Saint King's tomb were all in that passage. However, this did not mean that there was nothing in the other passageways. It was just that the things in them were not as many as the things in the passage. Not only that, but those tunnels were also much more dangerous than the correct tunnel. The most dangerous route was the one that Feng Yuan and the others had taken. Furthermore, there was nothing in that passageway. If it wasn't for the green smoke, Feng Yuan and the others, as well as the Ouyang family head, would have all died here. At this moment, some of the people from these families and forces were lucky enough to break through the other passages. They were helping each other to enter the exit hall. Just as they were about to go to the exit array, they were stopped by the people of the Ouyang family. Ouyang family head, what do you mean by this? The person who was stopped by the Ouyang family was taken aback as he looked at the people from the Ouyang family in front of him. The Ouyang clan's people wouldn't want to use force, right? Snatch their harvest? However, the Ouyang clan was the #1 clan, and they had the map of the sage monarch's tomb in their hands. Why would they need to rob them? Or could it be that the Ouyang family's people had eaten the meat, but were not even prepared to let them have a sip of the soup? With this thought in mind, the crowd instantly retreated with vigilance. Unconsciously, the people from these forces began to group up. Their strength was not as good as the Ouyang family. Chapter 1503. If they didn't band together, they would be tortured to death by the Ouyang clan in a matter of minutes. And some of the others also suffered heavy losses. A group of people gathered together. An injured patriarch of a large clan looked at the place where Patriarch Ouyang and the others were and said angrily, "Patriarch Ouyang, isn't your Ouyang clan a little too degrading by doing this? Both you and the Hua clan have the map and have reaped great rewards in this Saint King's tomb. Don't tell me you won't even let us have a little bit of soup?" "That's right. Your Ouyang clan's people are too greedy." A group of people from large and small clans echoed. "We have risked our lives to get a little bit of things, but Patriarch Ouyang, you can't even tolerate this. That's too much." Everyone glared at the Ouyang clan people. They still didn't know the purpose of Patriarch Ouyang and the others and only thought that the Ouyang clan was showing a hypocritical mask. Previously, they had always thought that the Ouyang clan people were really noble and had found a place like the Saint King's tomb and even shared it with them. Now it seemed that the other party knew that there were many copies of the Saint King's tomb map. Even if they didn't announce it, it couldn't be hidden if someone else got the other Saint King's tomb maps. That was why they were so kind. Now that they let them into the Saint King's tomb, they even wanted to take away their little harvest. Really shameless and greedy. Everyone glared at Patriarch Ouyang and the others. But they didn't know that when Patriarch Ouyang heard what they said, he almost had a brain hemorrhage. If their Ouyang clan really had a harvest, he wouldn't have done this. Did they really think that he wanted to cooperate with Feng Yuan? Wasn't it because their Ouyang clan didn't get anything? They weren't willing to let others take advantage of them. Now they were being accused of being greedy and insatiable. It was really a big mistake, and they had no way to reason with them. After all, who would believe it? They and the Hua clan, two of the top clans in Wild City, were schemed against and didn't get anything. If they said it out loud, they would be thought to be lying. "Shut up, all of you." The head of the Ouyang family was so angry that he fell backwards. He looked coldly at the people of the family forces in front of him and said coldly, "All of you stay here obediently. Before everyone arrives, no one is allowed to leave. Otherwise, die." The head of the Ouyang family was furious. He didn't have the face to tell her that he and the others had been tricked by Luo Qingtong and ended up with nothing. In any case, the young man, family and the people of the southern region were all going to die. Their belongings would all belong to him and the others. It didn't matter if he said it or not. Let's just let these people think so. In any case, when they finally left the tomb, other than the dead, there would only be their people left. No matter how much these people talked, what did it matter? As the Ouyang family head thought of this, he felt much better in his heart. His eyes were like an eagle as he scanned the entrance of the main hall in front of him, waiting for Luo Qingtong and the others to appear. The other party was their biggest target. These people were of no importance at all. The Ouyang family head's voice was cold and full of killing intent. Everyone was stunned. Chapter 1504. With a flash of white light, Yusi Huang and the others' figures appeared. Yusi Huang's face was cold. On his originally devilishly handsome face, the enchanting charm had completely disappeared, leaving behind only an ice-cold murderous aura and callousness. He strode toward the exit of the hall. Family Hu and the Southern Mountain Range people followed closely behind him. Those southern mountain range people, including Yu Xingqi, didn't dare to breathe loudly. Especially Yu Xingqi. She always took it as her duty to cheat her brother, and liked to insult Yu Huang the most. But this time, facing Yu Huang, who was obviously angry, she quickly hugged Dudu, who was in her arms, and quietly moved closer to Hu Yenyang and the others. Not for anything else, it was too dangerous to stay beside Yu Huang, who knows when she would be angered. Especially since she usually cheated. She liked to insult Yu Huang. It was better to stay far away from him. And Yu Huang didn't have the time and energy to pay attention to her. His gaze was cold as he looked at the exit hall. The Ouyang clan people were there, then the Huo clan people were there too? Yu Huang's heart was filled with anger and depression. Luo Qingtong had an accident in front of him, it was like a slap to his face. The Huo clan head was really good. Did he really think that his imperial sex power was in the southern mountain range and he couldn't do anything to them? If Luo Qingtong lost half a hair, he would make their western mountain range no longer have the Huo clan. Yu Huang strode into the main hall. His red robe fluttered in the wind. With just a sweep, he appeared in front of the people of the Ouyang family, blocking all the people from the other forces. Where are the Huo clan people? Yu Huang's pair of long and narrow phoenix eyes swept across everyone present, but he didn't see the Huo clan people. His face became even colder. That pair of peach blossom eyes that had always been charming and enchanting also surged with even more coldness. The Huo clan people? The Ouyang clan head and the others didn't know what happened after the Huo clan head left the passage, so when they heard Yu Huang ask about the Huo clan people, they were stunned. When they saw Yu Huang and the others appear, their hearts were filled with joy. They thought that the target they were waiting for had finally appeared. However, without waiting for them to attack, Yu Huang had already rushed in front of them. His expression was even colder and more severe than theirs. He even interrogated her about the whereabouts of the Huo family. They stared blankly for a moment, then glanced around and discovered that Luo Qingtong was not in Yu Huang's group. Thinking back to Yu Huang's question and the Huo family head who escaped from the passage, everyone from the Ouyang family immediately understood what happened. Haha. The head of the Ouyang family laughed out loud. I didn't expect this. Yijio was also tricked by his own design. Ah. He was in a good mood. Yijio had schemed against them, but what was the result? Didn't he end up in a situation where he didn't even know if he was dead or alive? Being targeted by Patriarch Hua, she was dead meat in the Saint King's tomb. Ah. The head of the Ouyang family laughed loudly. He looked at Yu Huang and the others, his face full of ridicule. Imperial sect head, I advise you not to look for the Huo clan people. They were trapped in the passage with us and now they are all dead. And all of this is because of Yijio. The head of the Ouyang family's face was gloomy. Chapter 1505. I'll take care of all of you. But now it seems like there's no need for that. I'm afraid she'll end up in a worse state in the hands of the Huo family head than in our hands. Ah. The Ouyang family head laughed out loud, then looked coldly at Yu Huang and the rest. As for all of you, don't even think about leaving this place. As he spoke, his face darkened. He looked at the people from the other families and forces and said, the Ouyang family has set a trap here today. Those who follow us will prosper and those who oppose us will perish. Other than family Hu and the people from the southern region, if you're willing to submit to us and swear to heaven and earth that you'll serve the Ouyang family in the future, then I'll let you go. Otherwise, all of you will die here. The Ouyang family head's face was cold. At this time, almost everyone in the Saint King's tomb had gathered here. The Ouyang family head and the rest did not care about the remaining people who were still in the passageway. Those who had not come out at this time were either not strong enough or were on their last breaths. Under such circumstances, even if those people came out, they would not be a threat to them. Once they had subdued those who came out, how could those who came out escape from their hands? Since they were going to do it, they had to be ruthless. They wanted the things in the Saint King's tomb. The Ouyang family wanted these people too. The Ouyang family head sneered, his head held high as he looked at the shocked people from the other families. What? The Ouyang family? The people from the other families and forces thought that the Ouyang family was just trying to take advantage of the situation and rob them of their gains. They did not expect the Ouyang family head to have the idea of subduing them along with their gains. These people who came to the Saint King's tomb were the high-ranking experts and mainstays of the various families and forces in the far west wilderness. Some of these forces were from Wildland City, while others were from other cities. Most of them were extremely powerful forces in their own cities. Once they submitted to the Ouyang family, it meant that their forces would be completely controlled by the Ouyang family. At that time, the entire Wild City and even the far west wilderness would be under the control of the Ouyang family. The Ouyang clan wanted to become the overlord of the far west desolate region. The people from the other families and forces were furious. Ouyang family head. Your Ouyang clan's ambition is too big. Be careful not to choke to death. That's right. Although our strength isn't as good as your Ouyang family's, you want us to submit to you and recognize you as our master? You're too naive. The Ouyang family's experts snorted coldly. That's right. Ouyang family head, your Ouyang family's people had better make way for us and let us leave. Otherwise, don't blame us for interfering in the grudge between you family who, and the imperial sect master. At that time, I'm afraid the ones who will die will be your Ouyang clan. The group of people from the various clans threatened. Since the Ouyang family head had already said so, the other family forces were no longer afraid of offending them. On the contrary, if they used this as a threat, the Ouyang clan would stop in time and let them go. To be honest, these people didn't want to fight with the Ouyang family. Chapter 1506. It was fine if the Ouyang family head was willing to take a step back, but if he was unwilling, they could only join forces with Yu Huang and the rest to attack the Ouyang family. However, the group of family forces felt that the Ouyang family head would not choose to do so. However, just as they were thinking this, they heard the Ouyang family head's loud laughter. Ah, you're all laughable. If I didn't have something to rely on, do you think I would say such a thing? Our family's strength is naturally not enough to do anything to you, but what if we had set up a trap in advance? The Ouyang family head looked at the group of family forces in front of him mockingly. He had already said that the Ouyang family had set up a trap here. Did these people think that just because the Ouyang clan's people had blocked them and surrounded them, it was already a trap? If that was the case, he would not have dared to face so many of them. Not to mention saying such arrogant words to make them submit. But now, the Ouyang family head sneered when he thought of the situation that he and the rest had learned from Feng Yuan. Holy Doctor, let them see the trap that you've set up. Let them see what kind of confidence the Ouyang family has to dare to say such words to make them submit. Following the Ouyang family head's words, Feng Yuan walked out of the Ouyang family's group with a cold and arrogant expression. Ever since she found out that Luo Qingtong was being hunted down by the Hua family head and most likely died without a burial place, she felt exceptionally comfortable in her heart. Evil Dr. Guitong, you deserve this day. It's a pity that you won't die in my hands. Luo Qingtong was being hunted down by the Hua family head. It was impossible for a martial ancestor to survive against a saint. Even if the other party was as cunning as a fox and had many tricks up his sleeve, where could she escape to in the Saint King's tomb? Therefore the other party was dead meat. Feng Yuan could not help but chuckle at the thought of this. She raised her eyes to look at Yu Huang and the rest in front of her, then fixed her gaze on Yu Huang. The man was evil and cold. Even though he was exuding a murderous aura, it could not hide his devilish charm. This kind of man also liked the evil Dr. Ghost Eyes, and even chased after her everywhere to support her. As Feng Yuan thought about this, a trace of uncontrollable jealousy and resentment appeared in his eyes. Imperial Emperor Sect Leader, since you brought me good news, I'll give you a chance. Give up on Yi Jiao and stand on my side. Become my male slave and I will give you and the people of the Southern Mountain Range a way out. What do you think? Feng Yuan's eyes were full of interest. If this man who liked evil Dr. Ghost Eyes ended up as a slave at his feet, kneeling and licking his boots, how would evil Dr. Ghost Eyes feel? If she knew about this in the underworld, she would probably be so angry that she would vomit blood. She was going to snatch everything that the other party had. No matter what method was used. Whether it was Yu Huang or Yi Chenxian, they were all like this. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye, I will use facts to tell you that you are inferior to me. Male slave? Yu Huang's long and narrow almond-shaped eyes swept across Feng Yuan. The disdain and coldness in his eyes could not be concealed even by the enchanting charm of his eyes. Chapter 1507. Yu Huang's eyes were cold. He had just carefully searched the hall with his divine sense and did not find any trace of the Hua clan. Damn it, were all the Hua clan members really dead? Wasn't this death a little too clean? Yu Huang originally wanted to catch a Hua clan member and use their imperial sect's unique bloodline search method to find the whereabouts of Luo Qingtong and the Hua clan head. His intuition told him that Luo Qingtong should not be in trouble so easily. However, the young girl's strength and cultivation were too weak compared to the Hua clan head. Even if she temporarily relied on the terrain and advantages of the Saint King's tomb, he was afraid that she would not be able to hold on for long. Thinking of this, Yu Si Huang was too lazy to entangle himself with Feng Yuan and the Ouyang clan head. He looked at Feng Yuan with an icy gaze, then turned around to look at the Ouyang family head and the others. He said in a deep voice, "Ouyang family head, if I remember correctly, this young lady should be the future young mistress of your Ouyang family, right? You want me to be her male slave, so obviously, do you think that Ouyang Xiao's green hat is not big enough? Or is it that your Ouyang clan style is so good that you don't mind this kind of thing? But unfortunately, I don't have that kind of hobby. Especially, I think she's dirty." Yu Si Huang raised his hand and touched the red mole at the corner of his eye with a smile. His action was obviously extremely enchanting and charming, but when he did it, it was forcefully added with a bit of a chilling aura. The identity of the imperial sect head cannot be humiliated, the dignity of the king of the southern region cannot be blasphemed. Yu Si Huang's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent as he coldly looked at Feng Yuan. This woman really did not know what was good for her. Did she think that everyone was Luo Qingtong? That she could freely take liberties with him? Feng Yuan was angered by Yu Si Huang's words. His face was full of arrogance and interest, but it all turned into embarrassment. She was just about to open her mouth to shout when Yu Si Huang's next sentence sounded. "By the way, in the future, don't bring out such a bitch and embarrass yourself." Yu Si Huang's pair of bewitching eyes slightly drooped, the smile on his lips didn't change. However, the words that came out of his mouth became even more impolite. "Otherwise, others will think that there are no men in the Ouyang family and that you can't satisfy her. Since the other party was so shameless, he would fulfill her wish." "Shut up." Feng Yuan's face twisted. Yu Si Huang's words to her was a huge slap to her face. Bitch. Did he find her dirty? Every word was like a slap to Feng Yuan's face. "Yu Si Huang. Don't think that you can sit back and relax just because you are the leader of the imperial sect and the king of the southern region. Since you insist on going with Yi Jiu and the others, then die with them." Feng Yuan was extremely angry. Her face was contorted. That face of hers was almost unbearable to look at. Everyone in the Ouyang family also had an ugly expression. Feng Yuan's actions really made them lose face. Although Feng Yuan wasn't Ouyang Xiao's real fiancée, she was still using this title. Ouyang family head also had a burst of blood rush to his head. He fiercely looked at Feng Yuan, then turned to Yu Si Huang and the others and angrily said, "Saint Doctor, there's no need to say so much to them. Since they are looking for death, then let's fulfill their wish. Do it." Following Ouyang family head's words, Feng Yuan instantly raised her hand with a sinister expression. Chapter 1508. Boom, boom, boom. A series of loud noises rang out, and in an instant the entire hall shook. Suddenly, snake-like figures sprang out from the abnormally sturdy green bricks and stones. They danced brazenly in the air. Those figures were extremely bloodthirsty and wild. Their blood-red bodies were extremely thick, almost thicker than the pillars at the exit of the hall that would take dozens of people to wrap their arms around. These blood-red demonic vines drilled out from the cracks in the walls of the hall and the pillars of the dome. Those thick and solid bodies stretched and bent over the walls, faintly revealing themselves from the broken walls. It was an abnormally terrifying sight. The entire exit hall was almost completely covered by these blood-red demonic vines. They were like giant snakes and dragons eyeing the people in the hall covetously. If that was all, it would be fine. What shocked everyone even more was that the aura of these blood-red demonic vines was extremely powerful and overbearing. Their roots were deeply rooted in this exit hall, and their aura was faintly the same as it. Not only that, but the aura in their bodies was also constantly rising. It gave everyone the feeling that they were absorbing the power in this Saint King's tomb to grow themselves. In fact, that was indeed the case. These blood-red giant vines were also called blood demonic vines. They were an extremely rare demonic plant. It was given to Feng Yuan by the wisp of green smoke. It was also the main purpose of the latter's visit to the far western wilderness this time. The blood demonic vines were fed and irrigated by blood and death aura. The more blood essence and aura a martial artist had when they died, the more powerful it would grow. The blood essence and aura would eventually fuse and form a blood-red flower in its body. Inside, it contained the life essence and experience of many powerhouses. It was enough to help powerhouses below the Saint Realm break through to the Saint Realm. If a powerhouse above the Saint Realm obtained it, he could break through to the next realm in one fell swoop. That blood-red flower was also known as the flower of the Saint Realm, the flower of death. Feng Yuan came to the extreme west desolate region in order to nurture this blood-colored flower. She gave the map of the Saint King's tomb to the Ouyang family in order to use the prestige of the Ouyang family to attract people from many family forces to this Saint King's tomb for these blood-red demonic vines to absorb their blood essence and strength. These blood-colored demonic vines lived on fresh blood and death energy. Naturally, they were like fish in water in this Saint King's tomb, growing rapidly. Feng Wan's previous plan was to let these blood-red demonic vines absorb the blood qi and death qi of many people who came to explore the Saint Monarch's tomb. After they grew, they would torture Luo Qingtong to death. Let the other party die an incomparably miserable death. However, plans could not keep up with changes. As soon as Luo Qingtong arrived, she tricked them into the wrong channel. They almost lost their lives there, not to mention killing Luo Qingtong. However, although the process of the plan had changed, the ending remained the same. Many people from the forces who died in the passage provided enough breath and nutrients for the growth of the blood-colored demonic vines. Feng Wan had ordered the Ouyang clan's people to lay down a spirit array at the entrance of the hall to absorb all the death qi and blood qi. Now the spirit array was completely set up. She wanted none of the people present to escape. Boom boom boom. Those blood-colored demonic vines quickly shot up. Chapter 1509. In an instant, a series of blood-curdling screams accompanied by the sound of the blood-colored giant vines flying up into the sky. Those people were brought up into the sky by the blood-colored vines, and then they were suddenly torn into pieces. Blood and flesh splattered on the skin of the blood-colored vines, and were absorbed by the huge tubes that bulged like blue veins on the surface of the vines. The blue veins on the blood-colored giant vines wriggled and swallowed all the blood and flesh that splattered all over the sky, leaving nothing behind. This scene caused the faces of the people present to turn pale and their throats to tighten. They couldn't help but step back. Among the experts who were killed just now, there were quite a few experts who had surpassed the Saint Realm. However, they were killed in an instant. Before they died, they only let out a scream. How terrifying was this? At this time, the people of the various forces finally understood why the people of the Ouyang clan were so arrogant and why Feng Wan was so unscrupulous. She dared to make Yu Chong Huang, the imperial sect master, the king of the southern territory, her male slave in front of everyone. The Ouyang clan obviously lost face, but they didn't do anything to the other party. But it turned out that this girl named Wan, who they didn't pay much attention to, was the one they really needed to pay attention to. She was the one who was truly dangerous in this scheme. The mastermind behind the Ouyang clan. As for Yu Si Huang and the others, they looked at the blood-colored demonic vines flying up one after another. Their faces were very serious. Especially Yu Si Huang, his strength was the strongest among them. Naturally, he could feel the aura of these blood-colored vines and how dangerous they were. This girl named Wan was not simple. She was definitely not just the future wife of the Ouyang clan's young master. Who are you? Yu Si Huang's gaze was cold as he looked at Feng Wan. The latter had already stepped on the head of an incomparably thick blood-colored demonic vine and rose up into the sky along with the blood-colored demonic vine. Of course it's me. Feng Wan sneered. She naturally couldn't tell Yu Si Huang and the others about her identity at this time. Otherwise, the identity of the evil Dr. Gui Tong couldn't be hidden, right? If the people of the Ouyang clan suddenly changed sides because of the other party's identity, she would have to spend a lot of trouble. Although Feng Wan did not mind killing a few more people, after all, the moment the layout was completed, the existence of the Ouyang family was dispensable. However, she still had some things that she needed the Ouyang family to do, so she couldn't kill them all for the time being. Therefore, whether it was her identity or the identity of the evil Dr. Gui Tong, she had to hide it first. Otherwise, new problems would crop up. Yu Si Huang, I will give you one last chance. Do you want to submit to me or not? Crawl under my feet, become my male slave, and become an obedient dog under my feet? If you're willing, I can grant you a favor and spare you from death. This is your last chance. Think about it carefully. Standing on the blood-colored monster vine, Feng Wan's posture was indescribably aloof and proud. Her eyes were gloomy and ruthless, coldly looking at Yu Si Huang and the others. The latter sneered, then raised his head and said, I'm not interested in a bitch. Especially someone like you. Chapter 1510. You. Feng Wan couldn't hold it in any longer. Her eyes were red and she was so angry that blood was about to drip out. Good. Feng Wan looked at Yu Si Huang as if she was dipped in poison. She then laughed coldly. Imperial sect master is indeed infatuated. Unfortunately, As she spoke, she compressed her voice into a line and sent it into Yu Huang's ears. Evil Dr. Gui Tong doesn't have you in his heart. Just wait to die for her. The anger in Feng Wan's heart had reached its peak. Yu Huang's determination reminded her of Yi Qianxian. That man who stood at the peak of supreme being in the black field could only see evil Dr. Gui Tong. Now Yu Huang was the same. But it didn't matter. After today, evil Dr. Gui Tong would no longer exist in this world. Only her, the heavenly doctor, would remain. Yi Qianxian would be hers sooner or later. As for Yu Huang, since he wasn't willing to betray evil Dr. Gui Tong and become her male slave, then he would die with these people from family Hu. As Feng Wan thought this, she instantly raised her hand and made a gesture. In an instant, those blood-colored vines that broke through the wall suddenly rushed out from the surrounding walls and pillars, rushing towards the people who were surrounded in the center of the main hall. If you don't want to die, then swear your loyalty and kill the people from the southern mountain range and family Hu. Otherwise, die. As Feng Wan's voice rang out, the people from the various forces who were surrounded in the main hall panicked. They looked at the huge vines that were rushing towards them from all directions. The entire main hall was almost cut into countless webs by these thick, blood-colored bodies. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth vibrated. The entire main hall was lightly trembling because of these thick, blood-colored python-like vines. And under the senses of these people, the aura of these vines was still growing. If this continued, they wouldn't have any chance of survival. The people from the various families looked at the exit array that was surrounded by the people from the Ouyang family in despair. Now, a large group of people from the Ouyang clan was also charging towards them under the command of the Ouyang clan master. The sealed Saint King's tomb was surrounded by blood-red vines, and the Ouyang clan's people were eyeing it covetously, waiting for an opportunity to kill. At this moment, the people from the various families were filled with regret. If they had known that the Ouyang clan was capable of capturing them in one fell swoop, they would never have been tempted by the map of the sage monarch's tomb and come here. Right now, there was no one to respond to his cries for help. There was no other choice but to submit and swear allegiance. We are willing to pledge our allegiance. We're willing. When the first person took the lead to say such words, the people from the other families and forces also gave up resisting. One by one, they were unwilling but had no choice but to swear their loyalty. Soon after, they aimed their attacks at Yu Huang and the others. In an instant, Yu Huang and family whose people became the target of public criticism. Everyone's spearheads were all aimed at them. If the people from the various families didn't want to die, they had to rely on Feng Wan and kill Yu Huang and the others. In the room where the sage monarch's coffin was placed. Boom boom boom. A series of violent explosions suddenly came from the room. Chapter 1511. Swoosh. Luo Qingtong's figure and Snowball's figure missed the Hua family head. She raised the long sword in her hand and felt the fusion and solidification of the strength and comprehension in her body. The smile on her lips became more and more flamboyant. On the other side, the Hua family head's heart was like a raging storm. He originally thought that if he attacked with all his strength, Luo Qingtong would definitely not be able to withstand it. Who would have thought that the young man relied on the long sword in his hand and the sage realm demonic beast to contend with him for so long? Clearly, the young man was only at the peak of the martial spirit realm, not even at the sage realm, but he repeatedly avoided the strongest part of his attacks. As a result, almost all of his attacks did not land on her body. Every time, some of the aftershocks blasted towards her and were then shattered by her. And, was it his imagination? He kept feeling that the other party's strength seemed to have increased a little. This kind of increase was not in strength but in quality and comprehension. The other party's use of martial skills and strength seemed to have become more harmonious. Thinking of this, the Hua family head's eyes suddenly darkened. He seemed to have thought of something and then he became angry. You. He raised his hand and pointed at Luo Qingtong and shouted angrily, "You used me to practice your moves and consolidate your strength." The Hua family head was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He desperately wanted to kill Luo Qingtong, but the other party used his carelessness to practice her moves and consolidate her strength. As Patriarch Hua thought about it, he felt a sense of shame in his heart. Bastard! You're courting death. The Hua family head was so angry that his whole body was about to explode. With a boom, he shook his sleeves and no longer cared about the loss of strength, and used his strongest move. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the entire room violently surged. A suffocating feeling like the eve of a volcanic eruption enveloped the entire room. Under the influence of the Hua family head's aura, the entire room seemed to be shrouded in a layer of low pressure. As the Hua family head's aura rose, the entire room was buzzing and trembling. Yi Jiu, I won't let you have any chance of survival this time. After repeated failures, the Hua clan head no longer dared to underestimate the slender youth in front of him. However, no matter how powerful he was only at the peak of the martial spirit realm. He'd utilized his full strength and utilized his aura to activate a secret technique at the Saint realm. He refused to believe that Qin Shi would be able to survive such an attack. The only way to accomplish this was if Luo Qingtong possessed strength comparable to a Saint realm expert in the martial spirit realm. But how was that possible? Let's not talk about whether Luo Qingtong had such power. Even if she did, it was not her own power. She could not use it. Even if Luo Qingtong had obtained a great opportunity in this room, she would still die in his hands. This time he would definitely not fail. As the Hua family head thought of this, he suddenly sneered. At this moment, Luo Qingtong had also felt that the power of the martial spirit realm that she was not very familiar with before was gradually familiarized and perfected by her during the confrontation with the Hua family. Seeing that the Hua family head had guessed her purpose just now, she smiled faintly. Her strength had been completely tempered. Even if the Hua family head did not notice, she was ready to stop and send him on his way. After chasing her for so long and suppressing her for so long, the Hua family head must be feeling very good, right? Chapter 15:12. Buzz. Luo Qingtong flipped her left hand, and in an instant, the heart of the 1,000-year soul-luring tree appeared in her palm, which was hidden in the black sleeve of her robe. Streaks of power that belonged to the soul of the Holy King from before entered Luo Qingtong's body. The aura in the girl's body boiled. In this stormy space, it was like a suppressed volcano. It was boiling on the inside, but there was no movement on the outside. But once it erupted, it immediately had the power to burn heaven and earth. I don't know if the man's move can reach the level of perfection with the power of the Holy King. Luo Qingtong's heart was inexplicably filled with anticipation. Yi Qinshian's strength was the strongest she had ever seen in her life. She had never been able to find out the bottom of his strength. Because of the matter of the heavenly pulse body, the man had always been secretive about his matters outside the domain. Luo Qingtong also didn't like to delve into it. Anyway, when her strength reached a certain level in the future, even if Yi Qinshian didn't say anything, she would know. Why bother to ask it this time? Clang. The death blade transformed from the life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand suddenly jumped under the stimulation of the power of the Holy King that Luo Qingtong had injected into her body. A faintly discernible black figure of death appeared from the death blade in Luo Qingtong's hand. This is... Luo Qingtong looked at the faintly discernible black figure that appeared and was suddenly stunned. At this moment, the Hua family head launched his attack. 1,000 Mountain Spiritual Qi Cut. Following the Hua family head's shout. In an instant, all the spiritual qi in the entire room was transformed into a huge spiritual qi sword with a wave of his hand. Before he raised his hand or raised his foot, he directly took away all the control of the spiritual qi. In a sense, the holy realm was considered to have touched the threshold of the heavenly way. Boom boom boom. The huge sword slashed towards Luo Qingtong from the front. Wherever it passed, the decorations in the room, which had not been damaged in the previous confrontation between Luo Qingtong and the Hua family head, all made cracking sounds. Small cracks appeared on the outside. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold. The blood-red light in her eyes flickered violently. Under such circumstances, the Hua family head's attack, the spiritual energy data, attack speed, and other aspects were all displayed in Luo Qingtong's eyes. In an instant, Luo Qingtong's eyes locked onto the point of attack in front of her. With her previous strength, even snowball strength, she wouldn't have been able to break it open. But now, Luo Qingtong fiercely grasped the 1,000-year soul guiding wood's tree heart in her left hand, and then swung the death blade in her right hand. Heaven-conquering art, seize heaven's fortune. As Luo Qingtong's sword slashed out, in an instant the whole room seemed to have been split open by Pangu. The powerful spiritual qi pressure that surged in the entire room was completely cleaved apart. A bright and dazzling sword light seemed to have come from the vast starry sky and also seemed to have come from the indescribable end of time. It broke through the oppressive spiritual energy and then flew towards the huge spiritual sword that was flying towards Luo Qingtong. Boom boom boom. Chapter 15:13. At the same time, Patriarch Hua's sneer and ferocious expression froze. How is this possible? He saw that Luo Qingtong's sword light had blocked his attack. This was different from the attack he had used against Luo Qingtong before. This spiritual sword had gathered all his strength and was activated by a secret method. Its actual attack power was above that of an ordinary saint's attack. Luo Qingtong was only at the peak of the martial spirit realm. How could she have enough strength to fight against it and release such a powerful and terrifying attack? What was going on? Patriarch Hua's expression froze. What shocked him even more was yet to come. After the sword light blocked his sword light, it fiercely pressed down. With a bang, his spirit energy giant sword was knocked away by Luo Qingtong's sword light. It was knocked away. Patriarch Hua looked at all this with a shocked expression. He almost couldn't believe his eyes. This was impossible. This was definitely a dream. How could a martial spirit realm warrior be able to withstand his attack? Furthermore, he had even broken through it. Patriarch Hua was unwilling to believe this fact. However, the piercingly cold sword light that assaulted him caused all the hairs on his body to stand on end. Terrifying, too terrifying. That Yi Jiu on the other side was simply a monster. Patriarch Hua had never seen such a monster like him. No, run. Run. The strong sense of crisis from the Saint realm surged violently at this moment. Patriarch Hua suddenly let out a strange cry. He waved his sleeve and turned to escape. The lofty aspirations of wanting to kill Luo Qingtong had now turned into panic and embarrassment. After the sword light broke the spiritual sword that Patriarch Hua had shot out, its power was greatly reduced. With a flick of the sleeve of the Hua clan's patriarch, it was immediately shattered by the violent energy contained within. However, just when Patriarch Hua thought that he could successfully escape, another powerful and domineering sword light suddenly caught up with him and chased after the broken sword light. In an instant, the Hua family's patriarch was hit by the first beam of sword light, which had shattered into pieces. It turned out that Luo Qingtong had once again swung her sword in that sword light. The same biting cold and powerful sword light killed Patriarch Hua in an instant. Bang! Patriarch Hua's body fell heavily to the ground. Until the moment of his death, he didn't know how Luo Qingtong had released such a powerful and terrifying attack. He had broken through his attack, even his saint-level defense, and killed him. Buzz. Luo Qingtong's figure floated in the air. The young man's black figure was in this space where the wind and clouds surged and light shattered. Luo Qingtong's eyes drooped slightly. She looked indifferently at Patriarch Hua's body falling to the ground. Then, she suddenly raised her hand and waved her sword. Boom boom boom. Sword light that was not weaker than the one that had just killed Patriarch Hua shot out from the death blade in her hand. She waved it towards the surrounding walls and pillars. Luo Qingtong wanted to break the defense of this room and make the special boundary power in the Saint King's tomb ineffective. If it was her previous self, she would naturally be helpless. Chapter 15-14. Luo Qingtong didn't need to completely destroy this room. She only needed to break a few key points, and she could make the special barrier that shrouded this Saint King's tomb lose its effect. That spirit formation power should have been specially set up by the Holy King's soul to seal his corpse. Now it was completely destroyed by Luo Qingtong. Boom boom boom. As Luo Qingtong's sword slashed out, the sealing power in this room quickly weakened. Let's go. Let's go to the exit hall. It's time to go there and get the so-called secret map of the fallen immortal land. At the same time, meet up with Wuxia Huang and the others. Lest they don't know what happened to me and worry for nothing. Luo Qingtong raised her hand to summon the little snowball that had shrunk. With a leap, she headed towards the exit of the palace. In the exit hall, when Wuxia Huang heard Feng Wan's words, his face suddenly changed. How did he know Luo Qingtong's identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye? What else did he know? Wuxia Huang's pair of evil eyes stared at Feng Wan. The latter had already made his move and didn't give him a chance to ask. Boom boom boom. Those blood-red vines violently attacked, and those people from the Ouyang clan and the surrounding clans all pointed their spears at them. A group of people rushed over, and Wuxia Huang's eyes were cold to the extreme. Bang! The energy around his body exploded. In an instant, his body was like a dragon. With a boom, his whole body rushed out like a storm and faced those blood-red vines. Boom boom boom. In an instant, his figure disappeared in the encirclement of the vines. Hu Zhongqian, Hu Fei, and the people from the southern mountain range also formed their own formations at this time. They fought back to back with each other, resisting the attacks from the Ouyang clan and the other clans. The people from the southern mountain range were more powerful. After all, they were the alliance of various sects in the southern mountain range. Every sect that had established a force in the western wasteland had at least one expert who had surpassed the sage realm to keep watch over it. Although they weren't as strong as Yusi Huang, they were still barely able to resist those powerhouses from Wild City. However, the family whose side was slightly inferior. After all, Hu Zhongqian and Hu Fei had just recovered from a serious illness, and Hu Fei had been bedridden for more than 10 years. Although his strength had the help of Luo Qingtong and absorbed by Feng's power, it was still difficult for him to advance to the Saint Realm. They had indeed gained a lot from coming to the Saint King's tomb this time, but as soon as they reached the exit hall, they were ambushed by Feng Yuan and the Ouyang family. Even if there were gains, there wouldn't be enough time to upgrade them. Now, they were at a disadvantage against the people from the major families. Fortunately, Su Yu and the others resisted. The people from the Heavenly Diabolism who came to the Wild City with Luo Qingtong had received a lot of resources from the Voodoo sect and the Bai clan. They were completely different from when they first came to the Wild City. Not to mention, Su Yu had also contracted with the Thunder Beast with Luo Qingtong's help. The Thunder Beast was in a special period where it had gained intelligence and advanced to the Saint Realm. Luo Qingtong had eaten the purple heart clear jade fruit. Chapter 15:15. This included the development of spiritual intelligence for this Thunder Beast. Now, this Thunder Beast had advanced to the Saint stage after being fed with a large amount of resources. Its strength was even more powerful and violent than before. Boom boom boom. Under Su Yu's control, its tower-like body rampaged through the attacks of the various family forces. Its violent strength and huge body provided family Hu and Su Yu with the greatest protection. A Saint Beast? Or a Thunder Beast? Seeing the lightning beast in front of them, the people from the various forces were all stunned. Even the Ouyang family members were stunned. Thunder Beast? Is there someone on family whose side a beast tamer? With this thought in mind, the crowd immediately looked at Su Yu and the others. Then they were shocked to find that these people did not seem to be from family Hu. Why were they on family Hu's side helping them? Were they not afraid of death? Family Hu's people were the target of public criticism. While the crowd was thinking this, Su Yu had already ordered the Heavenly Diabolism's people with a cold expression. Everyone step forward. The Heavenly Diabolism's people obeyed the order and took a step forward in unison. Then they took down the bags behind their backs. Including family Hu's people, the various forces looked at the Heavenly Diabolism's people in a daze. They did not know what they were going to do. Only Hu Yenyang, who knew a little about the inside story, knew what Su Yu and the others were going to do. They were probably going to use the things that their master had given them. As expected, they lifted their hands and opened the bag. In an instant, the scattered parts inside were assembled together. After a few breaths, the crowd saw something that looked like a long spear in their hands. However, there was no sharp blade. There was only a black hole that looked like a pipe. What are these things? The group of forces who were fighting family Hu's people and the Thunder Beast were stunned when they saw the things that Su Yu and the others took out. What kind of weapon was this? Why did it look so strange? There was no blade? I think these people are just deliberately mystifying things. This thing doesn't even have a blade, how can it hurt people? I don't even know where he found the fire stick. He purposely made it look so weird. An expert from the Ouyang family snorted coldly. However, just as he finished speaking, Su Yu's cold and murderous voice suddenly rang out. Release. As Su Yu's voice rang out, bang, 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 bang. The Heavenly Diabolism's members had already aimed and fired. In an instant, the long spears in their hands shot out spiritual energy bullets. In an instant, they flew towards the people in front of them like a rain of locusts. What? Seeing the spiritual energy bullets flying towards them like rain, the people from the various forces and the Ouyang family were stunned. Was this thing really a weapon? Furthermore, the power and speed of these things that were shot out were not small either. It was no exaggeration to say that each of these spiritual chi bullets was equivalent to an attack from Heavenly Diabolism. If these attacks were launched individually, they would not be harmful to the experts from the various forces. They could disperse them in an instant. Chapter 15:16. There was a saying that a large number of ants could bite an elephant to death. Although the strength of Heavenly Diabolism and the rest was nothing to the experts of the forces who came to the Sage King's tomb, with such a concentrated attack, even if they were strong, they had to be wary. D***eminent, what the hell is this? The experts of the various forces hurriedly dodged. However, the speed of the spiritual energy bullets was too fast, and they did not even take the long spears in the hands of Heavenly Diabolism and the rest seriously. It was too late for them to dodge at the last minute. Ah! Many of the people from the various forces screamed in agony. It didn't matter to some of the powerful experts. However, the disciples below the sage realm were all in big trouble. One by one, they screamed in agony as they were shot full of holes by the spiritual energy bullets of heavenly diabolism in the rest. In an instant, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. D****. Many of the weaker sage realm experts were also injured by the spiritual energy bullets. What kind of strange weapon is this? Quick! Don't let them shoot anymore. The experts of the various forces and the people of Ouyang family suddenly felt that something was wrong. The elite disciples that their families brought here for training were equally important. However, the strange weapons in the hands of heavenly diabolism and the rest were too powerful. Their attacks were not very strong, but they were able to shoot out countless bullets in an instant. Under such an attack, all the disciples below the sage realm that their family forces brought here would be killed, wouldn't they? The crowd no longer cared about the people of the southern region and rushed towards Su Yu and the rest like a swarm of bees. Seeing this scene, everyone in the Hu clan came to their senses. Quick! Protect them. Don't let them get hurt. A group of Hu clan's people suddenly surrounded Su Yu and others in the middle. They could also see that the guns in the hands of Su Yu and the rest were very powerful. Although they could not cause much harm to the experts, they were enough to make them wary and had no choice but to retreat to protect their elite disciples. In this way the pressure on their side was greatly reduced. The people of family Hu thought so and immediately protected Su Yu and the rest with all their might. When the people from the southern region saw this scene, they immediately came over. They were in the same boat as family Hu, Su Yu and the others. If the latter and the others were in trouble, they would not be able to escape either. Naturally they would spare no effort. The crowd immediately surrounded Su Yu and the others tightly. There were so many forces outside plus the Ouyang clan's people, but they couldn't break through their defense line. Seeing that Su Yu and the others were cooperating more and more smoothly with the southern region and family Hu people, the various family powers and Ouyang family members were so angry that they gritted their teeth. There were so many of them, but they couldn't do anything to the people from the southern region and family Hu. If news of this got out, people would laugh their heads off. However, they didn't expect Su Yu and the others to have such a strange method. Where did the other party learn these weapons and attacks from? If they had known that they had such means, they would have killed them long ago. Just as the people from the various forces and Ouyang family members were so angry that they were gritting their teeth, with a rumbling sound, a violent vibration was heard, and in an instant, the Hu clan and the people of the southern mountain range immediately let out cries of surprise and screams. Chapter 15-17. Huge and thick vines burrowed out from the ground of the grand hall like dragons and snakes. In an instant they wrapped around a large group of people and rushed into the sky. A bunch of trash. Feng Yuan stood on top of a blood-colored vine. He stood high up and looked coldly in the direction where Yishiwen was. These people were all a bunch of trash. So many people against family Hu's people and the group from the southern mountain range, but they still couldn't do anything to them. Fortunately, she had absorbed some death aura and blood essence and cultivated some more vines. Otherwise, she wouldn't even know how she had failed by relying on these people. Feng Yuan's gaze was extremely cold. Her gaze swept across the people who had been tied up by the vines she had sprouted and pulled into the sky. Among them were Hu Yinyang, Hu Zhongtian, Chu Lingfeng and the others. Mother. Chu Lingfeng hugged Hu Yinyang tightly and used his body to resist the binding and tightening of the vines. Hu Yinyang didn't have any power. If these vines used a little strength, she might be cut into two pieces. Seeing the painful expression on Hu Yinyang's face and the cold sweat on her forehead, Chu Lingfeng was anxious. He shouted at Feng Yuan, "You evil woman, come at me if you dare. I will never betray my master. You're not even fit to carry my master's shoes." Although Chu Lingfeng wasn't very bright, he relied on his beast-like intuition and keenly realized that Feng Yuan had a strong sense of hostility towards Luo Qingtong. If he said that, she would definitely target him. Then Mother and the others would be safe. As expected, Feng Yuan, who had raised her hand to order the vines to tear Hu Zhongtian and the others apart, stopped her actions and looked at Chu Lingfeng maliciously. "Master? Yijio? I didn't expect you to be her dog." No wonder she was so concerned about family Hu. Feng Yuan sneered at Chu Lingfeng. She had checked family Hu's information in the Ouyang family and naturally knew Chu Lingfeng's identity. She also knew that he was the one who brought Luo Qingtong to family Hu. Originally they were still guessing what the relationship between them was. Now the truth was revealed. He was a dog under evil Dr. Ghost Eye. He even dared to say that she wasn't even fit to carry her shoes. Feng Yuan hated it when people said that she wasn't as good as Luo Qingtong. Ever since she lost to Luo Qingtong in terms of medical skills, ability, scheming, she hated it when people said that she wasn't as good as evil Dr. Ghost Eye. The other party's dog was really courting death. Since you're so loyal, I'll help you. As Feng Yuan spoke, she waved her hand fiercely. In an instant, the thin branches and thorns of the vines pierced through Chu Lingfeng's body. The vines were as thick as pythons and the thin branches and thorns on their bodies were unusually sharp. After those thorns pierced through Chu Lingfeng's body, large amounts of blood splattered out. Chu Lingfeng's body was almost pierced into a hedgehog and a sieve by those thin branches and thorns. Seeing this scene, Hu Yinyang, Hu Zhongtian and the others all had red eyes. Chu Lingfeng, Su Yu and the others who were lucky enough to escape, also had red eyes. Especially Su Yu. She was going to suffer just now. One of the vines had purposely moved towards her. Chu Lingfeng had pushed her away. Seeing that he was being tortured, her eyes immediately turned red and she wanted to rush up. Chapter 15:18. Seeing that he was being tortured, his eyes turned red and he was about to rush forward. However, he was held back by the people from the heavenly diabolism. No. Deputy leader, you can't go. The people from the heavenly diabolism were in great pain. Many of them came from the Blackfields mansion and were on good terms with Chu Lingfeng. In addition, they had been by Luo Qingtong's side for a long time. Even those who were not familiar with Chu Lingfeng knew that he was loyal to Luo Qingtong. Seeing that he was being tortured by Feng Yuan, they clenched their teeth tightly. But at this moment, Feng Yuan's strength was really too strong. The vines that were under her control were constantly increasing in strength. She had become the one who controlled everything here. If Su Yu rushed up rashly, she would only be caught in the hands of the other party. By then, the heavenly diabolism would become a pile of loose sand. Don't be too anxious. Soon, it will be your turn. Feng Yuan's attention was attracted by the commotion over at Su Yu's side. He turned to look at them and sneered. These people were so loyal to family who? Were they secretly arranged by evil Dr. Ghost Eye in Wild City? The other party really had good intentions and a good plan. On the surface, family who was attracting the attention of many forces in Wild City. In the dark, they had cultivated such a strange and powerful force. Once the Hu clan took over the Hua clan's businesses and cultivated their own resources, coupled with this strange force, how many forces in Wildland City would be able to resist them if they suddenly launched an attack in the future? By then, the name of evil Dr. Ghost Eye would be famous in the Western Wilderness. However, it was different from before. If Luo Qingtong became famous this time, she would definitely be in charge of the Western Wilderness and become the leader of the Western Wilderness. This was one of the reasons why Feng Yuan went to the Western Wilderness this time. However, Luo Qingtong's strategy was open and above board. She wanted to develop her influence. On the other hand, her strategy was to scheme. However, all of them wanted to become the master of the far west desolate region. However, in the end he was slightly better. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye was dead. In the future, the only thing that would spread in the Western Wilderness would be his name. Feng Yuan's smile was cold. He looked at Su Yu and the others, who were full of hatred, and waved his hand fiercely. Suddenly, those blood-red vines, which were glaring at them covetously, rushed towards Su Yu and the others with a loud bang. Feng Yuan wanted to torture them one by one. It made evil Dr. Gui Tong feel extremely pained when he died underground. This way he could reduce the hatred in his heart. Boom boom boom. The heavenly diabolished the leader to evil Dr. Ghost by the Hua's side of the Huawei evil doctor. The people of the southern mountain range and family who were scattered by Feng Yuan's attack just now. They couldn't gather together and couldn't protect Su Yu and the others. Looking at the scene of these blood-red giant vines attacking Su Yu and the others, in an instant, many people's hearts were filled with extreme despair. Once Su Yu and the others were all caught or killed by the heavenly diabolical vines, they would really have no chance of survival under the attack of Feng Yuan and the others. After all, without the support of Su Yu and the other strange weapons, the Ouyang family and the other family forces would immediately recover and attack them together with the heavenly diabolical vines. At that time they would really be dead. Was there really no chance at all? Chapter 15:19. Buzz. A ray of white light suddenly shone from the entrance of the main hall. That was a sign that someone had come out from the other passageways. But no one looked in that direction. At this time, it didn't matter who came out from the other passageways. In any case, they would either submit to Feng Yuan or be killed by them. Ouyang family head and the others didn't even look in that direction. They were just a few fish that had escaped the net. There was nothing to be concerned about. The most important thing was family Hu and the people from the southern region in front of them. As for the people from the other forces who had stumbled out of the passageways, they could keep them alive if they were happy, or kill them if they were unhappy. As the crowd thought this, their eyes were fixed on the blood-colored vines that were attacking Su Yu and the others. 10 meters. 8 meters, 7 meters. 5 meters. Boom. The vines had already attacked Su Yu and the others. The top of the vines was like the head of a giant python, and they instantly strangled Su Yu and the others. Just at this moment, bang! A violent rumble rang out. In an instant, countless blood-colored vines flew out like exploding flesh and blood, drifting in all directions like rain. The shrill sound in the air was sharp and long, and it almost resounded through the entire main hall. The crowd looked in shock at the blood-colored vines that were rushing towards Su Yu and the others. They screamed and fell, bursting like rain. However, a figure suddenly appeared amidst this bloody scene. He had snow-white hair, reddish-golden eyes, and a huge body that didn't lose its noble temperament. The black-haired young man in black sat upright on it, and his eyes were as cold as ice. But the anger that was revealed in his eyes was boiling like fire. "Feng Yuan, how dare you touch my people?" Luo Qingtong rode on Snowball, holding a sword in one hand and pointing the tip of the sword at Feng Yuan, who was stepping on the blood-colored vines. "Master!" Seeing Luo Qingtong appear, Su Yu and the others instantly burst into tears. "Master, are you okay?" Everyone was both surprised and delighted. Previously, when they knew that Luo Qingtong was being chased by Hua clan's patriarch and separated from Yusi Huang, Su Yu and the others felt as if the sky had collapsed. If it weren't for the miracles created by Luo Qingtong supporting them and convincing them that Luo Qingtong would be fine, they would have died with Luo Qingtong. Now that he saw Luo Qingtong, he was both pleasantly surprised and deeply moved. "Yeah, I'm fine." Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Her gaze swept over the place where Chu Lingfeng and the others were. In the previous wave of attacks, Luo Qingtong's blood-colored vines had almost been cut to pieces. Even the vines that bound Chu Lingfeng and the others were no exception. Without the binding, Chu Lingfeng and the others fell to the ground. Yin Yang broke away from the vines on her body and ran to Chu Lingfeng's side. "Feng, While crying, she wanted to pull the vines that bound Chu Lingfeng's body. But those vines almost penetrated Chu Lingfeng's whole body. Just a light touch, the latter's body twitched violently in pain. In an instant, Hu Yinyang didn't dare to touch him again. "Master?" She looked at Luo Qingtong with tears in her eyes. The latter's gaze swept over Chu Lingfeng. Chapter 15:20. Chu Lingfeng's flesh, blood, and bones were all torn apart by the vines that pierced into his body. If it weren't for Feng Yuan deliberately avoiding Chu Lingfeng's vital organs in order to torture him better, he would have struggled to die in incomparable pain. She feared that Chu Lingfeng would have long since stopped breathing. Even so, Chu Lingfeng's injuries were so serious that he was on the verge of death. Even with his powerful regenerative abilities, he was still tormented to this point by Feng Yuan. It could be seen just how heavy the latter's attacks were. In an instant, Luo Qingtong's eyes burst out with killing intent. "Feng Yuan, you're courting death." Luo Qingtong fiercely slapped Snowball beneath her. The latter understood and instantly jumped up, attacking Feng Yuan, who was standing on top of a blood-red demonic vine. "Humph! Evil Dr. Ghost Eye, I didn't think you would still be alive." Feng Yuan's eyes were cold. After being exposed by Luo Qingtong, she no longer concealed her identity as Luo Qingtong. She actually knew her identity. Then, during the Sage Monarch's Tomb Convention, she already knew that she was deliberately targeting her? No wonder she was so unforgiving and insisted on apologizing in front of everyone. Her pride and arrogance had been completely trampled to the bottom of the mud. It turned out that she already knew her identity. So she guessed that she would target her at the Sage Monarch's Tomb Convention, so she deliberately beat her at her own game? As Feng Yuan thought this, she instantly clenched her teeth so hard that they were about to break. Her actions at the Sage Monarch's Tomb Convention were the greatest disgrace of her life. She had been noble all her life. Before she met Luo Qingtong, her life had always been smooth sailing. However, Luo Qingtong had suddenly risen, and the name of evil Dr. Ghost Eye had spread throughout the Sky Spill continent. Her reputation had been surpassed by the other party. Not only that, but the other party had repeatedly thwarted her. The men she fancied only had eyes for each other. Every time she wanted something, her plans would be ruined by the other party. "Evil Dr. Gui Tong, I already exist in this world, so why do you still exist? Damn you." Feng Yuan looked at Luo Qingtong with jealousy and hatred. Then he suddenly sneered and waved his hand. In an instant, the blood-colored vines that had been chopped up by Luo Qingtong once again gathered together and rose up like dragons and pythons. Good. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Feng Yuan stood on the blood-colored vine with his head held high. His gaze was cold as he looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong. Since you're not dead, then die in my hands. This Saint King's tomb is the best place for you to be buried. Feng Yuan sneered. Luo Qingtong came at the right time. Previously, he regretted not being able to kill her with his own hands. Unexpectedly, she was lucky enough to escape the Hua clan's patriarch's pursuit. However, this was as far as she went. Under his arrangements, she would die. In this sealed tomb, even if Luo Qingtong died, Yi Chenxian would not know. When he went out, he would have a chance to obtain that man. Luo Qingtong and the people around her should wait to be buried in the ground with the Saint King's tomb forever. With a wave of Feng Yuan's hand, the blood-colored vines that had gathered together suddenly slithered like dragons and snakes. With an extremely fast speed and an extremely powerful killing intent, they rushed towards Luo Qingtong. Looking at the blood-colored vines that were rushing towards her like dragons and pythons, Luo Qingtong's eyes were ice cold. Chapter 1521. The corners of her lips twitched. She raised her hand and swung her sword. Boom! Following Luo Qingtong's movements, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the entire exit hall instantly became violent. In Luo Qingtong's left hand, the power from the Holy King's soul continuously poured into Luo Qingtong's body. Then, through the meridians in her body, it violently poured into the life and death duality sword in her body. In an instant there was a violent explosion. A beam of majestic sword light swept out in an instant. It seemed to carry the momentum of severing heaven and earth and seizing creation as it violently blasted toward the shrieking blood-colored demonic vines ahead. Bang bang bang. The sword light in Luo Qingtong's hand swept out. In an instant, the blood-colored demonic vines were shattered again, just like how they were shattered by Luo Qingtong before. However, this time they could no longer reunite like before. This was because Luo Qingtong had cut off the most important main meridian in their bodies and left a streak of life blade chi in it, hindering them from continuing to absorb the death chi. Without the support of the death chi, these blood-colored demonic vines withered in an instant. Luo Qingtong's blood eyes immediately discovered the location of their lifeline. Others didn't know how these blood-colored demonic vines grew, but in Luo Qingtong's blood eyes, everything was exposed. Bang bang bang. The blood-colored giant vines withered and fell to the ground, and Feng Yuan's figure was also shaken back step by the terrible force of the collision between Luo Qingtong's attack and the blood-colored giant vines. If it weren't for the main root of the blood-colored giant vine beneath her reducing most of its power, she would have been shaken off by the terrible force and aura. This is impossible. Feeling the terrible force of Luo Qingtong's slash, Feng Yuan's face instantly distorted. How was this possible? How did the other party's strength increase so much in such a short time? The power of the blood-red vines came from absorbing the death chi and blood essence in the tomb. The power of the vines had already surpassed the Saint Realm and reached the Saint Realm or even the Sage Master Realm. Under such circumstances, how could evil Dr. Ghost Eye possibly shatter their attacks, break through their defenses, and destroy them so that they could not reassemble and revive? Feng Yuan felt like he was going crazy. The gap between Luo Qingtong and her wasn't that big in the past. In other words, she used to be the one looking down on Luo Qingtong from above. Even if the other party's medical skills were far superior to hers, and she had the favor of the Blackfield's Ming Zun, Feng Yuan still felt that the evil Dr. Ghost Eye was inferior to her. The strength displayed by Luo Qingtong was a huge blow to her. How could the other party's strength suddenly become so strong? What the hell is going on? Feng Yuan couldn't believe it at all. When Luo Qingtong first appeared, she thought that the other party was lucky to escape from the Hua family head's pursuit. As for the fact that Luo Qingtong cut her vines, she thought that she used some special method. For this reason, she specially strengthened her control of the blood-red vines. However, Feng Yuan didn't expect that Luo Qingtong relied entirely on her own strength. How could she be so strong? How could she be so strong? Feng Yuan's heart was full of disbelief. At this moment, boom. Chapter 1522. Then with a bang sound in front of Feng Yuan, at the place where Yu Si Huang's figure disappeared. A huge ball of wriggling vines suddenly exploded. The branches and tendrils scattered about chaotically like rain. Like a giant dragon python, the huge blood-colored vines burst out and flew to the sky. At the same time, a crimson figure suddenly shot out from the web of blood-colored vines in the sky. With a schwa sound, Yu Huang's figure flew quickly and landed in front of Luo Qingtong, Su Yu and the others. Tong. Little Jiu. Seeing Luo Qingtong's figure, Yu Huang's eyes suddenly lit up. That pair of bewitching eyes swept past Luo Qingtong, and then he suddenly smiled. I knew you would be fine, Yu Huang said and raised his hand to touch the tear mole under his eye. His face was indescribably evil and lazy, as if he had never worried about Luo Qingtong's safety. He had always been so wise. However, that moment of relaxation and relief in his eyes did not escape Luo Qingtong's eyes. She looked at him and smiled slightly. Thank you. This time, if Yu Huang was not here, the consequences would be unimaginable. Not to mention other things, if Yu Huang was not here with the strength of these vines, even without the cooperation of the Ouyang family, Feng Yuan could easily kill and tear Su Yu and the others to shreds. Not to mention that the other side also had a group of family forces. If it was not for Yu Huang and the people of the southern mountain range, Su Yu Tianxia's people, and family whose people, they would all be dead before she arrived. Luo Qingtong sincerely thanked Yu Huang. Although she had saved his life before, but along the way, Yu Huang had almost completely repaid the favor of saving his life. This time, it was her turn to owe him a favor. It's useless to say thanks. Yu Huang's charming eyes looked at Luo Qingtong. Suddenly he smiled and said with an evil charm, use action to show that I welcome you. As he spoke, he raised his hand to cover the wound under his red robe, and put his hand behind his back. Yu Huang had just attracted all of Feng Yuan's vines. Those vines weren't as new as the ones that Feng Yuan summoned later on. The vines that Yu Huang faced had already absorbed a lot of death qi and blood essence, and had grown very strong. The vines were all attracted to him. Only then did family Hu and the people of the southern region have a chance to catch their breath. Otherwise, Su Yu and the rest of the people from the Ouyang clan and the other clans and forces who had turned against them at the last minute, in addition to the vines, would have killed them all in one move. However, because all the vines were attracted to him, Yu Huang was unavoidably injured. In the end, he was only one person, and these vines had absorbed the death qi and blood essence of the Saint King's tomb. The more they fought, the stronger they became. This was their home ground. Even if Yu Huang's strength was rare, he still suffered a little under their hands. However, he didn't want Luo Qingtong to know about this. What was there to say when he was injured? When sympathy? If it was before, Yu Huang would definitely do this. If he could win a little sympathy, then he would win a little sympathy. What if Luo Qingtong was soft-hearted and really let him take advantage of her? But now he wasn't willing. The most important thing was, if it was Yi Qianxian, that guy would definitely not be injured. This was troublesome. How could Yu Huang let Luo Qingtong know that he was inferior to Yi Qianxian? Even if it was the truth, he still couldn't. The feeling of losing to a love rival was not good at all. Yu Huang snorted coldly and hid the wound on his hand tightly. Chapter 1523. Around Feng Yuan's body, blood-colored vines that looked like giant pythons swam around him. The body and color of these vines were far larger and deeper than the ones that Luo Qingtong and Yu Huang had killed. Not only that, but the aura that they exuded was constantly increasing. The vast power that they exuded was becoming more and more powerful. In the battle just now, Luo Qingtong and the others, as well as the Ouyang family and other family forces, had suffered many casualties. The death aura and blood essence of these people were all absorbed by these blood-colored giant vines. This allowed them to grow stronger and stronger. This was the terrifying aspect of these blood-colored giant vines in this Saint King's tomb. It was also the reason why Feng Yuan would rather take out the map of the Saint King's tomb to the Ouyang family and set up an ambush here. It was better to set up an ambush here than anywhere else. A completely enclosed space, enough people, and the sage monarch's tomb had the advantage of being in the right place. In short, this was the place where these blood-colored giant vines grew the fastest. After a while, several vines broke through again and promoted to the level of Saint Master. The aura that they exuded was even more horrifying. And at the place where Feng Yuan was standing, a small flower bud suddenly appeared. It was a blood-colored flower bud. Inside the flower bud, there seemed to be a heart that was moving up and down. Streaks of blood-colored aura were injected into the small blood-colored flower bud. This blood-colored flower bud was the Saint Realm flower that Feng Yuan wanted to obtain. It was formed by gathering the blood essence and power of a group of martial artists. Once it bloomed and was taken below the Saint Realm, one would immediately break through to the Saint Realm. And above the Saint Realm, one would immediately break through to beyond the Saint Realm. This blood-colored flower was extremely rare and was not something that could be found in the Sky Spill continent. It was also extremely precious and rare in the outer realms. The green smoke also obtained a blood phantom vine by chance. Before, he was reluctant to take it out for Feng Yuan to use. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong breaking Feng Yuan's luck-seizing technique, causing a large amount of Feng Yuan's strength to be absorbed by Ma Chenyi, it would be difficult for him to break through in the future, and his talent and strength would also be greatly damaged. He would never let Feng Yuan use it. Now, the blood phantom vine had absorbed a large amount of death energy and blood essence, and had begun to bloom. At the same time, the power of the vines around it grew stronger and stronger. After all, the blood-colored flower needed blood essence and death energy to nourish it. The bigger it was, the more powerful the vines around it were absorbing. Seeing the blood-red flower bud appear, Feng Yuan's face lit up with joy. Then he looked at Luo Qingtong and the others with a sneer on his face. "Evil Dr. Ghost Eye, I admit that your luck has always been very good. Your strength has suddenly increased so much. I'm afraid that you have obtained a great opportunity in this Saint King's tomb, right?" Speaking of this, the jealousy in Feng Yuan's eyes seemed to be about to be quenched with poison. All of these things should have been hers. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong interfering and scheming against her, the opportunities in this Saint King's tomb might not have been hers. And what did she do? Why could she obtain the favor of Yi Qianxian and Yu Si Huang at the same time? She was also a doctor, and her medical skills were not inferior to evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Chapter 1524. Even Yu Si Huang, the king of the southern region, was by her side, running around and protecting her in every possible way. Knowing that the consequence of refusing her request may be death, but she was not even willing to show any signs of submission. What's more, she didn't even hesitate, she didn't even have the thought of betraying Luo Qingtong. Why was the other party so lucky? Feng Yuan pinched her palm fiercely, looking at Luo Qingtong with resentment in her eyes. She looked at Luo Qingtong coldly, then sneered and said, "But even if you have great luck, so what? In this Saint King's tomb I am the real ruler and king. So what if Luo Qingtong could cut the previous vines?" That was just a new batch of vines that she had spawned. It was completely different from the main blood demon vines that were now surrounding her. Not only that, in this Saint King's tomb, as long as there was enough death energy and blood essence, she could continue to improve the strength of these main blood demon vines. What could Luo Qingtong use to compare with her? Her opportunity to improve was limited. But these blood demon vines in her hands were completely different. Feng Yuan thought so, and her confidence increased in an instant. She looked at Luo Qingtong and the sneer on her lips was even more obvious. So what if the other party had a great opportunity, and how fast her strength improved? She still had to die here. And she would never let her die so easily. "Evil Dr. Guitong, take this." As Feng Yuan's voice sounded, the blood-colored giant vines that were constantly surrounding her instantly attacked Luo Qingtong and Yu Si Huang like dragons. Except for the two of them, the others were not in Feng Yuan's eyes. As long as except for Luo Qingtong and Yu Si Huang, the rest of the people would die sooner or later. Feng Yuan's eyes were cold, and at the same time she ordered the Ouyang family and other family forces to follow suit. She must let Luo Qingtong and Yu Si Huang die without a burial place. Feng Yuan set aside a group of people to deal with Su Yu and the others, lest these people were eager to protect their master and ruin her plan to kill evil Dr. Guitong. This person had many schemes and thoughts. Who knew what she would think of to escape? After a series of face slaps, Feng Yuan no longer dared to have any thoughts of underestimating Luo Qingtong. She surrounded Su Yu and the others to prevent them from coming to make trouble and create an opportunity for Luo Qingtong to escape. At the same time, it was to prevent Luo Qingtong's life. She had no way to escape. These people had risked their lives for her, disregarding their own lives. She didn't believe that Luo Qingtong would be able to leave these people to escape. If that was really the case, the other party wouldn't be the evil Dr. Guitong who was known as protective. Feng Yuan's eyes were dark and ruthless. As for the Ouyang family head and those powerhouses, when she called out Luo Qingtong's name, they were already looking at Luo Qingtong in horror. This Yi Jiu was actually the evil Dr. Guitong? That Blackfield's genius alchemist, Ming Zun's lover? They looked at Luo Qingtong in horror. As for the latter, when Feng Yuan called out her identity, she didn't hide it anymore. Her aura and elegance were on full display. Chapter 1525. She clearly had a delicate and frail body, but under her imposing aura, she exuded a completely different demonic and domineering aura. The smile on her lips was as cold as ice. She was dressed in black and stood in the air with Yu Huang. She wasn't inferior in the slightest. Looking at Luo Qingtong, no one had any more questions. With such a magnificent and imposing aura, as well as being so outstanding and young, besides the rumored dark revered of the Blackfield evil Dr. Ghost Eye, who else could it be? No wonder they couldn't find out Yi Jiao's identity and origin. It turned out that the other party's identity was so terrifying. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye, the person that dark revered of the Blackfield held in the palm of his hand. Everyone's complexion changed as they looked at Luo Qingtong with unspeakable horror. The other party was actually evil Dr. Ghost Eye. This enmity was too great. No matter what, they couldn't let the other party leave the Saint King's tomb alive. Otherwise, all of them who had participated in the killing of Luo Qingtong would die. Dark revered of the Blackfield would never let them go. As everyone thought this, they instantly quivered and no longer dared to hesitate. They immediately split into two groups and surrounded Luo Qingtong, Su Yu and the others. Su Yu and the others were only restraining them. As for Luo Qingtong and Yu Huang, they were completely killing them. Among them, the Ouyang family was the most active. They had already made a big mistake. Even if they made another mistake, they would continue walking down this path. As they rushed towards Luo Qingtong and Yu Huang, those blood-red vines had already dragged their huge bodies through the air. They were like dragons and pythons as they rushed towards Luo Qingtong and Yu Huang. Tong Tong, be careful. These vines are very strong. Moreover, they can come back from the dead. Yu Huang's eyes were cold. Luo Qingtong's identity had already been exposed by Feng Yuan. He didn't need to hide it anymore. It was just that these vines were really troublesome. Their strength continued to rise and they were extremely powerful. Moreover, they could even come back from the dead. This point gave Yu Huang the biggest headache. When he was trapped in the ball of vines, it was because of this that he was injured. And with Luo Qingtong's strength, he didn't know if she could handle it. Yu Huang also discovered that Luo Qingtong's strength had increased. The girl was resourceful and had many tricks up her sleeves. She might have a way to deal with these vines. However, Yu Huang did not have much hope. After all, in front of absolute strength, ordinary methods would not have much effect. Forget it. Back then she had saved his life. This time he would repay her with his life. Who asked him to like her and owe her? Yu Huang thought. His heart was already prepared. If there was nothing he could do, then even if he had to risk his life, he would tear apart the space here and send Luo Qingtong out. The man's pair of bewitching eyes were full of seriousness. He unconsciously blocked in front of Luo Qingtong. Looking at his figure blocking in front of her, Luo Qingtong's lips slightly hooked up. "All right, your hand is injured, don't try to show off." Did he really think that she couldn't see? Luo Qingtong glanced at Yu Huang. She raised her hand and pulled him behind her. After that, she raised her eyes to look at the blood-red vines and the people from the Ouyang family. Her eyes narrowed slightly and she raised her hand and waved it. Chapter 1526. Along with Luo Qingtong's voice, a small pink figure leaped onto her shoulder. "Ah! It's finally my turn to show off my invincible might." Little Pig stood on Luo Qingtong's shoulder with a smug look on his face as he jumped up and down with his four little hooves. During this period of time he had been sullen to death. As Luo Qingtong's natal contracted beast, he couldn't even help her when she was in danger several times. This was simply a disgrace to his reputation as the ancient divine pig. But now it was finally able to show off its skills. How dare a puny demonic plant show off in front of your grandpa pig? If it weren't for the fact that I was sealed, I would have blown all of you to death with a single breath. Little Pig snorted coldly as he looked at the ferocious blood-colored vines that resembled giant pythons rushing toward him. Then he dashed toward the blood-colored vines. Boom! As he dashed toward the vines, an incomparably dazzling light suddenly burst out from his body. In an instant, his body was enveloped by the light. The ball of light floated in midair. At the same time, a deep purple hexagram suddenly appeared on Luo Qingtong's forehead. Buzz! As soon as the six-pointed star pattern appeared, it began to spin rapidly. In the air there seemed to be the sound of thunder and dragon roars. In the blink of an eye, it was as if a phoenix was crying. Then it was as if an auspicious bird was crying and a giant beast was roaring. The voices echoed faintly in the air. It was as if thousands of demonic beasts were roaring at the same time from all directions, from the endless void of time and space, from the primordial times. The exit of the main hall shook violently. Countless amounts of spiritual chi of heaven and earth surged around the crowd like boiling water, rioting and surging. It was as if they were trembling because of the imminent arrival of a terrifying aura and existence. Amidst the boiling spiritual energy, the ball of light around Little Pig suddenly exploded. Countless rays of light shot out and almost covered the entire main hall at the exit. Then, in the midst of this incomparably dazzling light, a shrill roar that seemed to have transcended the primordial times rang out. An incomparably huge claw suddenly stretched out from the ball of light. The tip of the claw lightly hooked. With a boom, the blood-colored vines that were darting around like dragons and snakes, emitting a terrifying aura like primordial beasts, were torn to shreds by the gentle movement of the claw. The terrifying power that seemed to have come from the primordial times and the boundless lands caused those vines to squirm on the ground after being torn into pieces. They were unable to gather back together for a long time. At the instant Little Pig made his move, a group of figures stopped not far away from the entrance of Wildland City. What's going on? The young man in the lead suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the Saint King's tomb. Was it his imagination? Why did he feel as if he had sensed an extremely terrifying force that could tear this entire continent into pieces in an instant? The young man was horrified. At this moment, several voices came from behind him. Chapter 1527. Behind the young man was a group of young men and women who wore the same clothes as him. They should be from the same sect. It's nothing. Let's continue. The young man regained his composure and shook his head with a frown. He must have sensed wrongly. How could there be such a terrifying power here? It had to be known that even the legendary venerable realm powerhouses might not be able to tear apart a continent. This was the mortal land of the Sky Spill continent. Compared to the hidden world, the difference in strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. How could such a power appear here? With that thought in mind, he stopped thinking about it and continued to lead the people behind him in the direction of Wild City. Saint Monarch's tomb. They watched as the giant claw that seemed to have descended from the heavens smashed all the blood-colored vines that were rushing towards them into smithereens. Everyone, including Hu Yenyang and the others, were shocked. They looked at the little pig that had returned to its pig form and fell into Luo Qingtong's arms. They never thought that it would be so powerful. Hu Yenyang and the others had never seen the little pig fight before. They thought that it was only a small pet raised by Luo Qingtong. They were just worried that Luo Qingtong would call it out. They never thought that it would be so powerful. Those blood-red vines that emitted a terrifying aura were like giant pythons and dragons. Under its claws they were like weeds not even worth mentioning. Yu Huang also looked at this scene with surprise. Then he suddenly chuckled. This woman had saved him once again. It seemed that he owed her for the rest of his life. While Hu Yenyang and the others were surprised and happy in their hearts, Feng Yuan's side was shocked beyond words and was on the verge of collapse. How is this possible? Feng Yuan looked at the blood-red vines that were as thick as dragons bursting apart in front of her. He couldn't believe his eyes. She came here full of killing intent and confidence. She thought that she would be able to kill Luo Qingtong and Yu Huang, but she didn't expect that she would be ruthlessly slapped in the face. He watched as the vines exploded in front of him, breaking apart and scattering like rain. The proud and cold smile on Feng Yuan's face immediately froze. Even the curvature of his lips seemed to have been frozen in place. This is impossible. She screamed shrilly. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's figure flashed. Feng Yuan, I'll return all the words you said just now to you. Don't even think about leaving this tomb. As Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, the girl raised her long sword with a boom. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was like a black bolt of lightning, piercing through the air above the exit hall, violently rushing towards Feng Yuan. It was time for the latter to pay the price for what she had just done. Luo Qingtong would never allow the opponent to attack without retaliating. Boom. The girl's figure flew. In an instant, she was like a swimming dragon, moving like a rabbit as she violently attacked Feng Yuan. The latter was standing on the thickest main vine. After the attack just now, only this main vine was left in good condition in the exit hall. The other blood-red demonic vines were all shattered by Little Pig's slap. Chapter 1528. She didn't have time to be entangled and resentful of her failure just now. She raised her hand and tried to summon those broken blood-colored vines again. However, those blood-colored vines wriggled for a long time, but they couldn't fuse at all. Not for anything else, but at their wounds, there was an extremely powerful and overbearing power that seemed to be derived from ancient times covering them. It made the death aura in those vines unable to spread at all. This was the power left behind by Little Pig's attack. His true body was incomparably powerful. Even if it was sealed and could only use a little power, the essence of this power would not change. Under such circumstances, the death aura in these vines had no way to break through the blockade of those forces. Naturally, there was no way to resurrect. Boom boom boom. With no other choice, Feng Yuan could only give up on gathering those powerful blood-colored demonic vines and summon new blood-colored demonic vines. But in the attack just now, she only let the people of the Ouyang family and those forces restrain Su Yu and the others. There were no casualties at all. The summoned vines were only 2 or 3, and they were cut off by Luo Qingtong in an instant. The life and death yin-yang sword in the latter's hand was the nemesis of those vines' death aura. When Luo Qingtong slashed with her sword, those vines had no chance to resurrect at all and withered in an instant. In just a moment, Luo Qingtong arrived in front of Feng Yuan. She waved the long sword in her hand and slashed at Feng Yuan. Her attack was ruthless and indomitable. Obviously, she wasn't going to give Feng Yuan any chance to survive and escape. Luo Qingtong never liked to leave any future troubles. Boom. As Luo Qingtong slashed with her sword, the green smoke in Feng Yuan's body was alarmed. It had just taken control of Feng Yuan's body and had already consumed a lot of power. It was now sleeping and recuperating. However, he did not expect to be alarmed by Feng Yuan's crisis. When the eye of the array saw Luo Qingtong's sword slashing down, its consciousness suddenly froze. Then, with a boom, it rushed up and took control of Feng Yuan's body in an instant. With a bang, he raised his hand and blocked Luo Qingtong's attack with his own strength. Surprisingly, Yang Kai found that the other party's attack contained the aura of a Saint King. Immediately, the green smoke's expression froze. Go! The Saint King realm aura in Luo Qingtong's body was extremely powerful, and although she couldn't fully exert it, he had consumed too much of his strength before and couldn't fully resist it. If this continued, Feng Yuan would definitely die. With that thought in mind, he immediately controlled Feng Yuan's body to leave. Seeing that Feng Yuan was about to leave, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes fiercely. She clenched the heart of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood in her hand and prepared her strongest attack. Feng Yuan, this disaster couldn't be easily let go. However, just as the green smoke controlled Feng Yuan's body to leave, the consciousness of Feng Yuan, who had already recovered, suddenly went crazy. No, I won't go. Feng Yuan's heart was filled with extreme hatred. She glared at Luo Qingtong in front of her with a ruthless gaze. The young man held a sword in front of her. Black clothes and black hair, he was unbridled and charming and domineering. Feng Yuan looked at Luo Qingtong like this, and her eyes were about to be quenched with poison. Chapter 1529. In order to return with glory and regain what she had before, she had planned and schemed for so long, all for today. How could she leave? After she left, was she going to hand over all the fruits of her hard work to evil Dr. Ghost Eye? No. As Feng Yuan's voice sounded, the wisp of green smoke scolded her in her mind. Shut up. Where there's life there's hope. You're no match for her now. You must avoid her. Qingyan's words were meant to persuade Feng Yuan. Luo Qingtong obviously had a special encounter in the Saint King's tomb. It was unwise for Feng Yuan to confront her head-on. It was better to leave first and think of a way later. However, his words poked at Feng Yuan's most sensitive point. She had always been superior and did not think that Luo Qingtong could compare to her. She could find many excuses for herself when she lost to Luo Qingtong in the past. But this time, Qingyan said that she was inferior to Luo Qingtong. All the pent-up anger and resentment in her heart exploded. No, I'll never leave. I still have one last trump card. As Feng Yuan spoke, there was a boom. Her intense resentment and obsession actually allowed her consciousness to suppress the green smoke and snatch back control of her body from the other party's hands. Evil Dr. Gui Tong, I won't lose to you. Never. As Feng Yuan roared in her heart, her voice was incomparably cold and contained a deep killing intent that resounded in the hall. Explode. As Feng Yuan's voice sounded in an instant in the direction of the Ouyang clan, including the Ouyang clan master and the other experts of the Ouyang clan, in an instant, boom. Boom, boom. A series of violent explosions rang out. In an instant, the entire exit hall was filled with an extremely strong smell of blood. Before the Ouyang family head and all the other members of the Ouyang family could react, their bodies began to swell violently. In an instant, they were like balloons that had been blown over their heads. They exploded with a boom. The Ouyang clan master and the other experts were more powerful and could withstand the explosion for a longer time. His eyes bulged as he looked in the direction of Feng Yuan. His eyes were full of resentment. Bitch. He pointed at Feng Yuan with a trembling finger. Naturally, he knew that such an incident in his clan was related to the latter. It was like asking a tiger for its skin. The Ouyang clan master's eyes were full of regret. If he had known that Feng Yuan was so ruthless, he would have done something to the people in his family. He would never have agreed to cooperate with the other party. So much so that he was tricked by the other party. The Ouyang family head's eyes were filled with hatred and resentment, but Feng Yuan's eyes were cold. Who asked the people of the Ouyang family to be so stupid? Without any means, how could she cooperate with them? Naturally, she had to ensure that she could control them. Originally, Feng Yuan had decided to use the form of cooperation to let the Ouyang clan arrange things for her. Once the dust had settled, she would use her own tricks to threaten the Ouyang family to pledge their allegiance to her. In this way, everything that the Ouyang clan obtained would belong to her. She would also become the true ruler of the far west wilderness. But all of this was ruined by the evil Dr. Gui Tong. Evil Dr. Gui Tong, you deserve to die. Feng Yuan looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with resentment and shook her hand fiercely. Chapter 1530. As Feng Yuan's voice sounded in an instant, the whole ground trembled violently. Under Feng Yuan's voice, the main vine standing under Feng Yuan's feet rose up in an instant like a dragon coming out of its cave. Amidst the violent tremors, which seemed to be capable of collapsing the entire exit hall, the aura of the incomparably huge main vine continued to soar. The originally incomparably thick body at this moment expanded horizontally countless times again. It rose from the ground fiercely, almost breaking through the dome of the exit hall. The long body rolled up and down in the space of this exit hall, crawling like a wild behemoth. Countless blood chi and death chi all rushed towards it at this moment. In the exit hall, the people of the family forces had long been stunned by this sudden scene. They never thought that Feng Yuan would suddenly attack the people of the Ouyang family. Isn't the other party a member of the Ouyang family? Just as everyone was thinking about this, they suddenly saw a group of figures pouncing towards them. It was none other than the remnants of the blood demon vines that were constantly creeping on the ground after being crushed by Little Pig's paw, but there was no way to reunite. At this moment, these remnants of the vines were all twisting their bodies, rushing towards them like snake shadows. The nearest group of people was caught off guard and was hit by the remnants of the blood demon vines. In an instant, screams rang out one after another. The voices of the people of the family forces were miserable, and the blood chi and power of their bodies were constantly absorbed by the remnants of the vines that rushed up. Streams of blood energy and death energy spread out along with their screams. In just an instant, the people of the family forces were sucked into dry corpses. At the same time, the remains of the vines also withered in an instant. The power of the blood essence that was released from their bodies was instantly absorbed by the main vine. The power aura around the latter became more and more terrifying. Looking at this scene, the faces of all the people from the various families and forces changed. It turned out that Feng Yuan's target was not only the people of the Ouyang family, but also all of them. The latter couldn't wait to kill all of them present to provide nourishment for the huge main vine's growth. Everyone thought so, and suddenly there was an indescribable panic and fear in their hearts. The scene was filled with screams and it was extremely chaotic. Su Yu and the others were also attacked by these vines, but everyone from the heavenly diabolism held a spirit chi gun in their hands. Under the precise control and aim, the broken branches and vines that rushed over were all knocked down under the attack of Su Yu and the others. Although they couldn't destroy them, the vines couldn't get close to them. Family Hu and the people of the southern mountain range were protected in the middle and were unharmed. Seeing this scene, the people from the various families felt a wave of regret in their hearts. If they knew the end result would be like this, they would never have turned against Su Yu and the others under Feng Yuan's threat. Now, the path of survival that they thought they had found was actually a path to death. On the contrary, Family Hu and the people of the southern mountain range were living well. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.